Hey, what's up, wifey?
Hey, baby cakes. How's it going?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm glad we are here. This is our first conversation on the YouTube channel, right?
Yeah, our first convo together. I know we've shown up, I've shown up in my own video, you've shown up in your own video, but this is our first time coming together.
Yeah, because we have so many dope conversations and we love chatting about things. And, as 2023 approaches, I don't know, we just felt like we wanted to invite our audience in on this one of these chats that we typically have. And especially since, you know, we've been growing these past 3 years through the pandemic.
Hmm.
And I don't know, it's just been wild. I think we need to just unpack this. We need to talk about the growth we've experienced over the past 3 years, right?
Yeah, I think it's perfect time to reflect because 2023 is coming. And I don't know, the pandemic kind of like felt really long, but then sometimes it felt really short. So yeah, I'm excited to dive deeper into our growth during the pandemic.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously there was a lot of tragic things that happened during this time, but I'm just gonna be honest. I have to say it. Like for me, this is the most growth I've ever experienced in my life. Honestly, like I've never been more clear about who I am, where I'm going, and about even clear about the past, everything that happened up to this point. I've never been more clear, and the pandemic gave me the opportunity to be able to figure that out. So I don't know, like how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel like the pandemic was the time where, you got to quiet out the noise and all you
Mm,
had was yourself and your own thoughts. And you
yeah,
weren't so busy on the go, just distracting yourself with all these things, all these places to be, all these conferences. Everybody had to slow down.
right. And who knows how everybody decided to use their time, you know?
True.
But we know how we decided to use ours, and I think this is an interesting story we have to share. There's been so many internal awakenings that we've both had
Hmm.
individually in different areas of our lives that I think our community, those who will come across this video can truly use to show the value of taking time, in quarantine and isolation, while everything slows down to rediscover kind of who you are, kind of hear your authentic voice, and begin to do whatever necessary work aligned with that to reach a point where you can show up in the world more powerfully, more confidently, more fulfilled,
Hmm.
and more wealthy.
Love it. Let's dive deep. Let's dive
Yeah,
in.
let's dive in. Let's dive in. So, before we talk about what growth we experienced in the pandemic, I think it makes sense for us to unpack where were we. So the pandemic happened in 2020, but I think we started hearing about it in the end of 2019, so around December 2019, right? So where were you? Where would you say you were mentally, in life? Uh, you know, where were you at this time?
So yeah, I really didn't start hearing about the pandemic until March of 2020. So I had no idea what was coming because I moved in with you in December of 2019. So I was really just excited for just the new beginnings. Most of my relationships, yeah, I want to say like probably all of my relationships ended up being long distance, right? And so I was just ready to start believing and stepping into a new story that obviously all my other long distance relationships didn't work out, right? So this was me taking a risk. Like, no, I believe that this time could be different. It's my first time moving in, living in with a man, and just believing that things could be different, even though there were so many struggles that I did face in my other relationships. The relationship I had with my dad, the abandonment there that I faced. So it was just a time of just new beginnings and believing a different story, like
Hmm.
something can be different possibly for me in my relationship. I can have a successful relationship.
Yeah, I mean, what even gave you like when I asked you to come move in with me in Charlotte, like I guess what gave you that initial belief that things would be well? Because that's quite of a large jump, but we were already long distance for about a year, right?
Hmm.
Because I asked you out in November 2018, so a year later, you were about ready to move in with me. So what kind of gave you that sense of comfort to even make that jump?
Oh man, I'm looking here at this little rock that I have in front of me.
Oh, The Rock.
The rock. Oh, cause you
Yeah.
know what? When I was single, I just I was in a time in my life where I was like, I think I was close to my late 20s. And I just remember being in a time of just like praying to God that I could find a good man with a good heart. I remember journaling about this kind of man that I was looking for. And it wasn't so much about like what society's expectations said that I should be looking for in a man, you know, 6 figures, six pack, 6 feet, like, you know, like that's not the things that I was writing on my list because like I was going for these things in the beginning and it just kept not working out. So I started changing what I was asking for, what I was seeking, and just being ready and for this, you know, ready to give up the games, you know, ready to give up seeking what the world is telling me I should want and just really just going within and like, God, what do you have for me? What feels right
Hmm.
for me?
Yeah.
So after I did that, you know, you kind of came along on my path, even though we were already friends for a long time. That's when you really
Hmm.
stepped it up and asked me out to go to dinner with you.
Officially, and the vibe was totally different. Like my
It
approach was
was.
totally different.
But yeah, God just kept
Yeah.
showing up. You know, he kept like answering
Hmm.
my prayers, showing me different ways that you were the one. You know, I was feeling so much calmer with you. There wasn't no drama and chaos because I was used to having tea in relationships. Like, used to just be like, girl, let me tell you what this man did. Right. So when I finally let go of all of that, now I had to get used to being in a peaceful state and not having
Right.
chaos.
Hmm. Yeah. So we were able to continue seeing each other almost every month throughout that year prior
Mhm.
to that end of 2019, and yeah, it just felt right, and
Yeah.
then we got tired of paying them flight tickets, I'm sure, and yeah, we
Yeah,
need
we
to
were
get you
definitely
in.
spending on flights. But yeah, so
Yeah.
that's where I was. But I want to say like the trigger for growth. I mean, obviously relationships. Relationally, we had a lot of growth there, and we had a lot to learn about moving in together.
Hmm.
But for me, I really knew that I needed to start doing the inner work when I was applying for jobs. So before this, I was freelancing, and then I was like, I started applying for jobs, and I remember I was on one job interview and she asked me this question. She was like, okay, so tell me about a time in your, you know, in your job career where your personal life interfered with your career. And
Hmm.
instantly I had a flashback about the time I was working and my dad passed away and just like that whole journey. And I never really reflected on that. Like I just, you know, I guess I just kept, like you said, the pandemic forced us to slow down. And this was the first time that I was facing that again. Um, and I wasn't distracted. And so like I just broke down in the interview. I started crying. And then after I got off that phone interview, I was just like, maybe I need to talk to someone about this. Maybe I need to go to therapy.
Hmm.
And so therapy really did help me, you know, learn more about, you know, my what I viewed about success, you know, heal from my last 9 to 5, heal from the
Hmm.
relationship with my dad, and just help me, you know, even have a better relationship with you.
Right. Right. Oh wow. Okay. Yeah, I remember that time. I remember that time. I mean, it was even a struggle for you even considering going back to a 9 to 5, like to even be in that interview. That was
It was.
an interesting struggle in itself, right?
Yep. Because
Yeah.
like before the pandemic, you know, I'm just out here, you know, I do feel like I was like it was like the boss babe era. I want to say the boss babe culture where, you know, everybody wanted to be a full-time entrepreneur. And we believe that if you weren't a full-time entrepreneur, if you went back to a 9 to 5, that was like failing. Right.
Hmm.
So all my idea of success was wrapped into being a full-time entrepreneur. But in therapy, she helped me redefine my definition of success. Like I get to choose what success looks like for me. And the whole circle doesn't have to be entrepreneurship full time. I
Hmm.
could still be an entrepreneur, have a slice. I could be, you know, a wife as a slice one day. I could be a mom as a slice. You know, I could just, you know, there's so many other slices I can have in my success pie.
Hmm.
And therapy helped me realize that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think it was an interesting time because even, we were still getting used to each other, living together. You
Mhm.
were getting used to now living in your own apartment.
Yeah.
Now, and so you have those new things
Hmm.
and still needing to hustle and make this money through your business. So a lot of that was kind of it was tough on you. So
It
you were
was
like, you
tough.
know what, let me get a job. This could kind of help out. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to keep hustling. You
Mhm.
can help, kind of contribute to the home, financially with me, and we can both, work together and grow together. So that was kind of like, that was kind of like the journey, as
Mhm.
well, right? For you.
Yeah, that was the
Um,
journey for me. And you also
yeah.
did give me a grace period, which I appreciated, like 6 months when you was gonna pay all the bills. So that gave me more time to like figure out, what I wanted to do with my life.
Yeah. Oh, I realized why I brought that up, because I know that I was kind of struggling with, like, I think our relationship kind of had some struggle because, you had to go off and go off into the side, into your side of the house, hustle, go hard, like, oh, I gotta do this, gotta do that, and it's like, it seemed like the priority of that started to compete with the attention that I needed, that I wanted from you in our relationship. So I felt like it was kind of a competition, kind of a struggle there. Whereas, like, I felt like, okay, going back to a 9 to 5 will kind of give you some form of ease, of being able to let go so that you can focus on these other areas that you obviously want to improve in, which is building our relationship, building our life together moving forward.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I never heard you share that before. What do you mean, like by competition?
Yeah, because I guess if you were always prioritizing, trying to make money through your business and this and that, and there's some struggles there, then that takes away time from being able to spend with me, right? And being able to prioritize, getting up and just being at ease and saying good morning, my handsome husband. Let me, cook you some breakfast. You know what I'm saying? Versus like getting up and stressing and thinking about how you're going to make your next buck, versus kind of being more at ease. So I don't know. I felt like that was kind of, yeah, that boss babe culture, the hustle.
Yeah, I think that that was definitely something that was different from being a single woman and going from long distance where like I just talk to you on the phone, but like you don't see me working all the time, or you just don't see,
Right.
I'm literally just in my room at my mom's house working like just all the time. So like that was a shift when we moved in together. I couldn't just focus on just me and making money. Now I have
Yeah.
this person to
Exactly.
think about. And now how do I balance? How do I balance having you in my life? How do I balance making my own money? How do I balance having to wash the dishes or thinking about what we're gonna cook for dinner? Like it was
Hmm.
all these things I'm trying to juggle. Uh
Yeah. It
yeah.
it would have been, if it was bringing you joy and made you a super happy woman all the time, balancing all those things, and no problem. But it's like, if it's bringing you stress and you're, and constant worry and feeling this weight on your shoulders, and the relationship is now just an additional, suitcase along with the other baggage that that came with the boss babe culture, then yeah, it was just stressful. So I thought it made sense to kind of dive into that a little bit.
Yeah.
Um,
Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah. So how about
yeah,
you? Take us back from your perspective. We just dived deeper into my perspective about where I was in December 2019. So
yeah.
where were you?
Where was I? So we're about 1 year into our relationship. Before we even got in a relationship, yeah, at that point I was pretty much fed up by the summer of 2018 with the lifestyle that I was living. I had a few years in corporate America. Now I had been graduated, been partying, making a lot of money, getting promoted at work. Um, you know, being a victim of my own success, because the entire time I never really felt like I was passionate about IT. Still not to this day, but I knew how to thrive and adapt, because the end goal was always to, I was the first of my family to graduate college, and I wanted to change the trajectory of my family. So
Mm.
that's what I did. I was the hometown hero from Rochester, New York. Got the degree, got a job, moved out, and started to enjoy my money, travel a lot, go out, um, and just focus a lot of my time on doing whatever I can to uh, grow on my career, and yeah, just enjoy my 20s.
Mhm.
And then, so by that point, I was about fed up, man. I just felt like I wasn't being a purposeful individual. I had just realized that my upbringing and the emotional trauma I had incurred through the relationship with my mother, and seeing her going through some mental health struggles through the years, that kind of severed our relationship. Once I realized that my lack of my lack of ability to love a woman and be and trust a woman and want to be and see myself long term with a woman. Once I realized that that was a direct correlation with how I was coping with my relationship with my mother, I realized I needed to change something. So that's what was the initial trigger to approach you and be more serious, because we had so many years of building, a good friendship already, and I was already attracted to you, and I could see a future with us, but I just never wanted to take that leap because I didn't feel like I was ready. So, but at that point, I was ready. So fast forward, we're a year in. Long distance was great, honestly, because I moved down to Charlotte initially with the intention of, remaining faithful, of talking to you every single day, flying you in every single month, continuing to just change the way I was living. So
Mm-hmm.
by 2019, before the pandemic came, um, I was ready to step it up. I was ready to get you here. I was ready to have you closer and start to, draw us closer to, what eventually became us being married. Right. So outside of that, though, I know I needed to start getting my life together, you know, in terms of my faith.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely wasn't, I grew up in a church and stopped going to church at age of 14. All those years from 14 to, I don't know how old I was, maybe 27 or something like that. When we got together, I hadn't been going to church. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, I didn't really understand what it truly meant to believe in myself. So I knew that I needed to address that. I knew I needed to start getting my money together, because I was, you already know, I
Yeah.
hired you. I hired you as a money coach initially when we were
Mm-hmm.
friends, right?
Yeah, when you said that
Um,
you were enjoying your 20s and your money, you are telling the truth because yeah, I saw how you were
yeah,
spending.
making six figures, but a lot of that money was being spent on restaurants, trips, car,
Drinking. Yeah.
drinking, yeah, all those things. And it was, hey, that's what the 20s was. That's what we were told the 20s were supposed to look like. So I was
Yeah.
doing those exact same things, but at the same time, I just started realizing I wasn't happy inside.
Mm-hmm.
So I needed to get that part of my life together. And um, more I think the most notable area that I needed to get right was my career. I already touched on it. I just felt like I was out of place. Um, I was dealing with migraines every now and then at work. Didn't really know why I was going through that. Never really felt a sense of belonging necessarily, in the groups that I was working in. A lack of connectedness to the work that I was doing. So yeah, around the end of 2019, there was just so many different areas of my life, financially, relationally, professionally, that yeah, mental health wise, right, that I needed to start addressing.
Mm-hmm.
And right when you moved in, it was a good time for that. And surely enough, that pandemic came and gave us the time we needed alone. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, I think
yeah.
that it's interesting because how you mentioned like the relationship with your mom, and then how I also mentioned the relationship with my dad and how that was affecting us and how we were showing up in our, love life relationships. Because our parents is like the first examples that we see of like what love is,
Or what it should be, right?
what it should be.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I think we have the two things in common, and also being for two first generation graduates just trying to figure out, corporate America. And then
Right.
me
Finding
figuring out
ourselves.
entrepreneurship, finding
Yeah.
ourselves. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Finding ourselves, and because yeah, the priority for us was money.
The
When
money.
you grow up in that, when we grew up in that survival mode, you didn't grow up around money. You didn't really see much of it.
Mm-hmm.
So that encouraged you to get into
The
boss babe
hustle to
culture,
boss babe
the
culture.
hustle
I
culture,
gotta
right?
hustle. I gotta make this money. And then it's also
Yeah.
like I can't trust this. I can't trust the man to be
Mm,
there for me because my dad
right.
left and he wasn't there for my mom.
Hmm.
And then my mom has to struggle, and I don't want to be a single
Yeah.
mom. I need just to have enough
Right.
money just in case. Like,
Exactly. And for me, it was, just being around so much violence, a lack of role models, the lack of right people, the lack of people doing the right things around me, yet still having this certain drive in me. that just enabled me to feel like I needed to change my situation. I needed to find psychological safety. And the only way that I would do that is if I chase a bag, and I didn't want to do it the wrong way, the best way that I knew how, because all I knew was, keeping my head down, following the rules. That's what they teach us when you're in survival mode is, you know, follow the rules, get an education, get a degree, get a
Hmm.
job, and live the American dream. And that was my road to freedom. But yeah, I had a rude awakening once I got out on that road, that I didn't really know who I was. I didn't really know what my purpose was, how I should be showing up in the world. You know, I didn't even have a family mindset. I thought I was going to be single forever. I laughed at the
That's
idea of
true. I
marriage.
remember in a Facebook, we used to chat on Facebook messages, and I remember you saying that like marriage, I ain't getting married till I'm 35, maybe 37. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
okay, so we both realized, right, that like something in our life has triggered us, and we realized that we needed to heal, we needed to grow. And this is where the morning routine enters the chat. So
yeah.
as people might not know this, but if you've been following us for some time, we are really big on morning routines. But how did that come about?
How did that come about? Well, I think we both have different stories as it
Mhm.
relates to morning routines, because you were already doing a form of morning routine for years.
Yeah.
Um, and for me, that kind of came about in a different way. Do you want to actually open up about how you kind of
Hmm.
started and how you
Yeah,
got
so for
into it?
me, I've always been in love with growth and personal development, and I just remember always, even in high school, watching motivational videos, buying books. I just love learning and listening to people's stories and inspirational content. So for me, the morning routine, I've always been doing some form of the morning routine throughout, the past decade of my life. Whether that's watching inspirational content, whether that was journaling, whether that was working out, and affirmations, but it wasn't like consistent. Like it wasn't like in an organized, structured way where every day I'm working on a routine this specific way. It's like one day I might
Yeah.
journal, one day I might work out, the next day I might pray and read my Bible, the next, it was just
Hmm.
kind of scattered.
Right. Right.
Hmm.
Yeah. So for me, what happened was, and one thing I didn't touch on in terms of what triggered the growth is, in the end of 2019, after all those different areas I needed to start, after I realized I needed to start getting those areas together, that's when I decided to start up my own personal development brand. I wanted to start living with more purpose. I wanted to give something back to the community that I wasn't doing, since I graduated college. Because when I was in college, I was always involved. I was always in leadership activities, leaders of clubs, organizations, frats, right? That was always something I was involved in, but I hadn't done it for years since graduating. And I was like, yo, I can't keep moving this way. I can't keep thinking that just having fun would be my story. After graduating and getting the six-figure job, I wanted to do something bigger than that. So shortly after the pandemic hit, that's when I asked you. I
You
said, "Hey,
hired me,
Candice."
took away some stress from my hustle, my hustle life.
Yeah, and you helped me put together a brand. My initial brand, jordanrawls.com. And I really, at that point, I really wanted to help Black men like myself live more intentionally. That was the overall basis. It's how to use our stories. From coming from the hood to a different place, how to use everything that we've been through as tools, of how to use my story as tools for inspiration for others, right? To be able to look back at their stories and reframe everything that they've been through and realize the power in those stories and realize the purpose in those stories. Because I think when we come from the backgrounds that we come from, it's hard to see the good in any of it sometimes, because you're so surrounded by all the negativity, and you think about all the traumas and negative aspects that it had on you growing up. But when you realize the good in all of it and the skill set that it's taught us through our adversity, through our persevering, through us being resilient through those situations, those very qualities help us be so unique and stand out in the world and elevate us to such a platform, that we would have never imagined. That's what I wanted to do. So I started up, my initial brand. And as I continue to try to grow that brand through the pandemic, working on myself, starting to I needed to regularly exercise. I needed to start meditating so that I can start dealing with those migraines that I was getting. I needed to start journaling. I mean, in the beginning of 2019, and I think it was December 2019, no, the end of 2019, you gave me a journal. I didn't start journaling until a year later. I really didn't consider it,
You had certain
right?
beliefs about journaling. You're like, Candice, it's just so cool to be able to see you transform, because I've seen you
Yeah.
transform from the day since we were together to 2018 to now. And
Hmm.
I just seen your growth and just how you shifted so many of your beliefs to become this person that you are right now.
Hmm.
Beliefs and habits.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because when we all those years we were talking, you really didn't talk that much even about God like that. You ain't really talk about your faith like that. I remember one day I asked you like, "Yo, if you go to church? You raised in the church? Do you love And you were like, "Yeah, like that's all we know. That's all I." But you were so chill about it. You ain't pressure me about it. But over time, I started to pick up on those things, and I was like, okay, it encouraged me to start reading the Bible throughout the whole 2020. I read the Bible, right? I tried to read a new chapter every week. Took me about a year to get through it, but every single day I was doing that. I was working on my brand, trying to just create inspirational content, start getting into the blogs and stuff, just getting my feet wet and to becoming a thought leader.
Mhm.
And I realized I needed to have more structure because at the end of the day, I still had my 9 to 5. I still was a full-time scrum master in IT, so I needed more structure. So that's when I started to get up around 5 a.m., 6 a.m. every single morning through the pandemic. Um, well, more so like towards probably the end of 20, towards the middle end of 2020, I think I started taking it more seriously and
Mhm.
applying structure. And that's where 2021 came around, where I was like, Candice, what I want to provide something. I want to put some kind of product out there. And you were like, well, you get up every morning. How about you put
Mhm.
together a ebook
Morning
for a morning
routine. Yeah.
routine? Yeah, yeah, and from there,
Awesome.
that's where I took it away, and I put that together and called that the intentional morning routine, and applied some structure to my mornings, and because it was something that I needed to do, it was so timely. I needed to take action. I
Mhm.
needed to get structure instantly. I needed to get rid of these migraines. I needed to feel more purposeful. So I was waking up. Yeah, I went from waking up, shortly before 9 to waking up at 5. That's a big drastic difference, but I gradually did that. I started waking up 1 hour before. Then I started waking up 2 hours before the next week. And then the next week after that, waking up 3 hours before. So I started altering my sleep schedule much faster and was able to start working on all these different areas of myself day
Mhm.
to day to day, just building myself every single day. And I realized I wasn't tired as much, and I realized how energized I was in the morning, showing up to work, knowing that I was working on myself, knowing that I was building this brand before I logged into work. And that, in essence, just gave me so much confidence while also giving me the time to plan out, okay, the therapy that I eventually got. I eventually started reaching out to a therapist. I actually, to work through some of my issues with my father, with my mother, right? I also reached out to a career coach because I'm like, yo, I like this brand that I'm building. It feels so great, but it's totally different from the job that I have. What should I do? Should I quit my 9 to 5 because I'm miserable? I'm going to you every single day, right? Um,
Yeah, I remember that time.
I'm like complaining to you about it, right? So
Mhm.
I just felt like I needed to start taking action, and the morning routine gave me that space to figure out what I needed to do while also giving me the space to build what I truly wanted to build. You
Mm.
know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I think for me, yeah, the morning routine just when you're in a place where you need to grow in your life, like the morning routine just gives you that time to carve out of your day to do that work that you need to do.
Hmm.
Because before I was motivated before my morning routine was unstructured, right? Little pieces here and there. But then as I started seeing you waking up every day, being consistent, waking up and doing your morning routine, I was like, wow, maybe I need to be more consistent with my morning routine. So you inspired me to start being more structured in my own morning routine, waking up a little bit earlier. Because I realized even as an entrepreneur, that could have helped me because, as an entrepreneur, like I wasn't as dedicated, as structured of doing the inner work so that I could show up more powerfully even in my business.
Mm,
So yeah, that's something that I realized. The morning routine just helps you grow into that person that you want to become. And it gives you
yeah,
that time. Because when you don't wake up early to work on yourself, now you're just heading into the world and you don't have that time to reflect. You don't have that time to meditate. You don't have that time to pray, to work on your body, your mind, your soul. You don't have that time because you're just on the world's agenda now. So it's like,
right.
when do you get that time to yourself?
Hmm. Right, right, exactly. And then, I was like, the need for external validation was strong before the pandemic. And once the pandemic came, like, it just gave me so much space to just think about myself, to think about us, to think about the life we were carving out.
Mm-hmm.
And, so around that time, that's when I started making, even better. I started making better money choices that are more like I started investing, right? I invested for
Yep.
the first time in
True. You
2020.
became debt free.
Um, I became debt free. Yep, paid off all my school debt after graduating in 2014, and I didn't pay off all 16K in loans until 2020. So
Yep.
that's mad years of just paying the minimum, right? And that I also had this charger, and I didn't think I would ever get rid of that charger, but it came time around the lease ending, and I was like, you know what? I don't need this car. It's just going to be sitting out here. I'm paying $600 a month for
Mm-hmm.
the car note and the insurance, and I made the choice to give it back and just save that money. And we drove, the 2013 Nissan
I
Sentra
paid
that
off
we paid
Nissan.
off in cash. And we put our heads down and we stayed humble and we focused on ourselves. So that's where where we continue to meet month after month. Having our budget meeting where we actually establish the budget, thinking about how what are the goals that we want to have, and how can we start working towards those, as well as checking our net worth monthly as the stock market did what that did,
Mm-hmm.
seeing that growth, right? So
Yeah, and it
yeah,
also we talk about our relationship each month too. So in that meeting we talk about our net worth growth, our individual goals, our goals as a couple, and then also like what's working, what's not working. And
right.
those meetings just give us a time to check in, holistically. And I think it's important because again, when you don't take that time to carve out of your day and build these habits, it's easy for life to just distract you. And then you don't get that time to check in and then to make shifts if you need to make shifts. Like
Right.
our net worth, like last month, it grew the most it's ever grown, and it's like we can't outwork the market, right? It's like if we didn't, put in those habits throughout those years
To continue
to
investing through all the
continue
ups
to
and
invest
downs.
through all the ups and downs, like, yeah, we wouldn't have been able to outwork it by just not investing at all and just working our 9 to 5 jobs.
Hmm. And the thing is, it's the same with the morning routine, right? Waking up and working on ourselves incrementally, putting in those small investments.
Yeah.
That those small investments continue to compound over
Add up.
time, and
True.
that showed up inside. And
Yes.
that
It shows up
so
inside and the shift inside shifts the outside.
exactly. So if somebody wanted to go back in my Instagram highlights and look at, I've been documenting the entire journey. You can see I went from I always felt like I was confident, but you can see the growth, right? So you can
Yeah.
see the less confident Jordan to where he is now. Like, you can see that growth, and as a direct result of me getting up and doing that work in the morning every single day. I still work at my job. Yes, um, a lot of things haven't changed. We're still here in this apartment, but
Mm-hmm.
we've grown so much, and that's changed things. We've both gotten new jobs,
Mm-hmm.
right, during that time,
Yep.
and it enabled us to even birth this brand, Wealthy and
Brand true.
Relax, having that type of clarity, so much clarity that we realize what truly makes sense for us and what we can build together and what the potential is for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, sometimes when people I was going to ask you, why do you think morning routines are underrated? And before you answer that, though, like for me, when I think about a morning routine, anytime somebody wants to make a shift in their life and become somebody different, there's a time where you're between living two different stories, right? You're in this one story, like if you're trying to get your finances together, like maybe you've been overspending each month. Now maybe you have all this credit card debt, you're overdrafting your account or just whatever it is. Like you're in this state, but this other version of you want to be a more person that makes wiser financial choices. So you're kind of in living these two different stories, and you need to gain evidence that you can become this person who makes wiser money choices. But it takes time to build that evidence, and it's easy to slide back into the old you.
Mm-hmm.
So do you
Yeah.
think the morning routine helps with that? Like the morning routine even helps with you becoming this new version of you?
Of course, I agree. Yeah. I mean, before you can go out into the world and show the world that you are this powerful person or you are this person that does this thing that you want to be known by, you have to be able to do it privately. And if you can't even show up for yourself in the
Ooh,
confines of your own home throughout a pandemic where nobody is supposed to be outside anyway, then how the hell you think you're going to be able to show up outside and actually prove what you want to prove, right?
that's
You know
true.
what I'm saying? So
Yep.
yeah, this is the practice.
Yes.
within your four walls, being able to show up for yourself when no one is looking. Showing
Mhm.
up for yourself when no one is looking is going to give you that confidence to show up for the world when everybody is.
Exactly. It's going to give
You
you
know?
that belief. It's going to give you those evidence that I can trust myself because I've been showing up and doing the work. And now
Hmm.
I have this strong belief and I'm able to show up more confidently because I've been doing the work behind closed doors when no one is
Right.
watching
And you do
versus
it, and you
not
do
doing the
it
work and you
right.
trying to
And
show up and pretend, but
exactly, that's what I was gonna say. Because when you show up, if you show up and still attempt to be this person and do that thing, it's gonna you're not gonna do it so well. You're gonna
Mhm.
end up embarrassing yourself, and now you're ashamed about the performance you just did because you never really prepared for it. You didn't even really come from an authentic place. You never really put in the internal work. You hadn't really unblocked those interferences that was keeping you from believing in yourself. You hadn't really healed
Mhm.
past those past traumas that is blocking you from showing up and being confident and not being anxious about what people would think about you if you did do that thing. So, when you actually do the work internally, you show up in the world and you perform at a much higher performance level, a much higher quality,
Mhm.
because you no longer are those things that were holding you back privately are holding you back publicly now because you've
Yeah,
dealt with that. So
that's so true.
yeah, I feel like morning routines in general, I think they are, especially amongst the Black community, I think they are underrated. I feel like we don't really put enough value on the incremental growth that we could benefit from if we were to show up for ourselves privately, working on our minds, working on our bodies, working on our souls, working on our relationships, working on our finances.
Mhm.
Um, it's underrated because I feel like, we get so comfortable with what's not working. We get so comfortable with mediocrity. We get so comfortable with just being busy and being available for everybody, you know, and there usually has to be some triggering event in our lives that causes us to really seriously consider it.
Mhm.
Like for me, I didn't seriously consider morning routines if until the headaches really started to take a drastic effect on me. I mean, I was having headaches for years, but it got to a point where like this is unbearable, right? And this gap internally of me not living in my purpose, not being fulfilled, going to work every single day,
Mhm.
this day-to-day routine, this default routine was so unsatisfying. That became unbearable. That it had to get to that point for me to start considering it, right? What about for you? Was there a point that you reached,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
really triggered you to?
Mhm. Yeah, so there's this quote that I was found from Ash Cash on his Instagram post. And in the book, he says, life has a fabulous feedback system showing you what you are doing right by where you are winning, and you need to improve by where you are frustrated. So when you talked about that
Mm,
trigger, that's what it reminded me of, because the areas that you're doing well in, those are the areas that you're winning, and life is showing you, like, that's your feedback. Your feedback system is showing you this is what you're doing right. But when you're
yep.
frustrated in a certain area, it's like, no, something needs to improve here. And so me
Mm,
using the morning routine to improve in the areas that I'm frustrated in, like for example, from in my business, I always feel like wasn't happy with the way that the business that I created. I didn't want to be serving people in this way, but I also at the same time didn't have enough time to like do the work to pause and reflect, because I need to just make this money. So now I'm just taking on any client to make this money, but the morning routine gave me that time to start journaling and like, okay, what have you been telling yourself isn't possible? How could things be different for you? Like, it just gave me time to meditate on, focus on, like, what am I feeling inside? What is happening internally for me that is affecting how I'm showing up externally in
hmm
the world. So,
And what do you truly want? What
and
do you
what do
want?
I want? What do you want? Like, the
Right,
book.
right.
Yeah. So
And are
yeah,
you valuing
help
that?
me.
Like, are you valuing it enough? Because you've been always saying mind, body, soul,
I have
for years. You know
years,
what I
but I
mean?
had for some reason just like, everyone else is niche down, niche down, niche down. So like I can only talk
Hmm
about finance. I can only talk about, oh no, now finance is too general. Now you just zone in even more. Now you're a
hmm
debt person. And now I'm like,
Right,
but I don't want to be the debt person anymore.
right, right. So it's like morning routines are, I believe they're underrated because we continue to neglect, suppress, and ignore all
Mm,
the signs,
true.
and it gets to a certain point where we say enough is enough.
Yep.
And it just so happened to work out for us that right before the pandemic came, enough was enough for us. And we decided to give in and say, yo, let's be together. Let's make this work. Let's build this life. Let's chase for more purpose. Let's build. Let's get our minds right. Let's get our finances right. Let's get this healing. Like,
Mhm.
that was a triggering point. So I think, for our audience watching, ask yourself, how much more can you take? How many, brother, how many times are you going to continue to be clowned by your boys who just pull you out the house and pull you into the club, who got you drinking, smoking, doing all this, chasing after all these women, taking these women home, and you waking up the next day, bloodshot eyes, you can barely speak, you can barely think correctly, and you don't even feel like it was worth it. How many times are you going to enable yourself to be in that situation? Or what's something that comes to mind for you?
Women.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So for the women out there, how many times are you going to just get sucked up into what the world is telling you should want, and when it comes to relationships, like maybe you was raised in the church, right? You was raised in this church to be this certain way, and now your actions are completely different from the way that you were raised. And Maya Angelou has this quote, like, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them. But sometimes we don't even want to believe our own actions, because like we're conflicted with how we're showing up, how we're acting, how we're interacting with sleeping with these different men, how we just got caught up in the worldly ways, and now we're so off, far from the track that we want to be on. Like, how many times are you going to, like, not trust your inside of, and just get back on the right path, a
Right. I
path
mean,
that is
yeah.
just more, I don't know the word, I'm trying to find the word, but that's
Mm,
kind of where a little bit where I was just tired of, the hookups, tired of the games, tired of living in chaos, tired of not having peace,
yeah.
all of these things. So
Right. When is it going to be enough for you in your career of being miserable with the work that you're doing, with
true,
not
that's true.
with not figuring out who you are? Like, how
Mhm.
much longer are you going to go with touting all this negativity, complaining about the world, blaming everybody for your circumstances? How much longer do you want to keep going with spending your money on things that you literally don't care about? If you were to lose it,
True.
you don't even think twice about it, but yet your pockets are
Mm.
struggling with thinking about how you're going to make rent. Like, all these different things are always happening. Like, cases where we go inside ourselves and we think like,
Or
yo, I
building a
don't want to
brand that
keep.
you're not happy with, truly.
Mm,
But everybody's telling you this is the path, this is the way that's going to make money. just stay there. But like inside, you hear something different, and it's like, you have to start listening to this voice inside versus what everyone else is telling you.
How much longer are you not going to prioritize yourself,
Mm,
y'all? Come
yeah.
on. How much longer are you going to keep
Yeah.
putting everybody else's opinions, thoughts, and suggestions for
Over
your
your
own
life.
life
Yep.
over your own? Come on. So that's the importance of us doing the morning. That is the importance of us doing the work every morning. That was why the pandemic was so beneficial to us, because we listened to the government. We stayed at home. We stayed away from people, and we did what only we could do, is focus in on ourselves, focus in on what lives do we want to live, and how can we start to gradually build that and enjoy that journey while doing that, right?
Yeah, and healing holistically.
All of that work, So yeah, this is why the pandemic was so good for us, and it's what led to us building Wealthy and Relax, because we realized we were thinking and talking about the same things for years.
Yeah.
And once we released and shed all of those layers of what the culture trained us to carry on, as stressful as it was, to do that, we finally had the freedom and space to let it go. And once we did, we realized how much the potential for what we can build together, and which is in alignment with who we are, and
Mhm.
and the impact that we want to have on our community.
Absolutely. So you guys can definitely check out our website if you're interested in, learning more about us and our services. Just go to wealthyrelax.com.
Yeah, and we definitely love to help co-create morning routines specific to you, specific to your why, specific to your values, specific to where you want to go. We can do that, and you can grow with us, having us as your accountability partner, those who have went through the journey, who continue to go through the journey, who continue to enjoy the journey, because this is a lifestyle. This is what we do. This is how we're able to build this successful brand. This is how we're able to continue to move towards, our future vision, whether it be in our jobs that we work or in our own business, or yeah, just showing up better in our marriage, right?
Yeah, for
Or
sure.
whatever it may be in your life.
The
We're
morning
all
routine
about
can help.
leveling up. It can help. It can
Yes.
help. So
Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's grow.
let's grow. Appreciate y'all listening. Y'all take it easy. All right.
Bye.